When a black waitress serves Snoop Dogg at a small diner, she expects it to be just another exhausting shift. But, as she clears his table, she notices a note scribbled on the check. Her hands tremble as she reads it, and moments later, tears stream down her face. What could he have written that changed everything? You won't believe the incredible twist that follows. The scent of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon hung in the air of Maggie's diner, blending with the faint hum of an old jukebox playing a classic rock tune in the corner. For Lauren Mitchell, the smell had long since lost its charm. To her, it was just the backdrop to another grueling shift. The late afternoon lull had set in, and the diner was nearly empty. Sunlight streamed through the wide glass windows, highlighting the cracks in the linoleum floor and the scuffed edges of the wooden tables. Lauren glanced at the clock above the counter. Just 2 more hours, she told herself. 2 more hours until she could head home, kick off her sneakers, and collapse on her couch. If she was lucky, she'd get a solid 6 hours of sleep before she had to return to do it all over again. Her feet ached, a dull reminder of the double shifts she'd been pulling all week. She adjusted the faded blue apron tied around her waist and leaned against the counter, stealing a moment to catch her breath. Bills were due, her car's transmission had started making a weird clunking noise, and her younger brother Marcus needed medication she could barely afford. Lauren prided herself on her independence, but the weight of it all felt suffocating at times. She cast a glance at the near-empty tip jar on the counter. The few crumpled bills and loose coins inside seemed like a cruel joke. That morning's tips had barely covered the cost of her bus fare to work. Customers had come and gone all day, leaving behind dirty plates, half-empty coffee cups, and the occasional mumbled, "Thank you," but not much else. Lauren sighed and grabbed a rag to wipe down the counter. Across the room, her coworker Jenna chatted with a couple seated in a booth near the window. The couple seemed pleasant enough, laughing quietly as Jenna refilled their coffee mugs. Lauren envied Jenna's energy. Jenna was the kind of waitress who could charm a smile out of even the grumpiest diner regular. Lauren, on the other hand, was just trying to survive the day without collapsing. The bell above the diner door jingled, snapping Lauren out of her thoughts. She straightened up instinctively, plastering on her practiced waitress smile. A man walked in, tall and lean, his movements casual but deliberate. He wore a black hoodie and jeans, his face partially obscured by a pair of large sunglasses. Behind him, 2 men followed, their sharp eyes scanning the room with quiet intensity. They were dressed inconspicuously, just jeans and jackets, but their presence screamed security. Lauren's curiosity was piqued, though she didn't let it show. The diner wasn't exactly a hotspot for high-profile guests. Most of their customers were locals or truckers passing through. The sight of someone walking in with a security detail was unusual, to say the least. The man in the hoodie made his way to a corner booth and slid into the seat. His security team lingered nearby, choosing a table with a clear view of the room. Lauren grabbed her order pad and approached the man, her smile steady even as her pulse quickened. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice even. "Can I get you started with something to drink?" The man looked up, and for a brief moment, Lauren felt her breath catch. There was something about his face, calm, familiar, yet magnetic. His sunglasses obscured his eyes, but his energy was unmistakable. She couldn't quite place him, but she knew she'd seen him somewhere before. "Cappuccino," he said, his voice smooth and laid back. "And a slice of pecan pie, if you've got it." "Of course," Lauren replied, scribbling the order on her pad. "Anything else?" He shook his head. "Nah, that'll do. Thanks, sweetheart." The casual warmth in his voice caught her off guard. It wasn't the detached politeness she usually got from customers, it was genuine. Lauren nodded and turned toward the counter, feeling his eyes on her back as she walked away. As she prepped the cappuccino, Lauren's mind raced. Who was he? His voice, his presence, it all felt so familiar, like a song she couldn't quite place. Then it hit her. Snoop Dogg. Her hands faltered for a split second, nearly spilling the steamed milk she was pouring. She glanced over her shoulder, her heart pounding in her chest. It had to be him. The laid-back demeanor, the signature voice, it all made sense now. Lauren took a deep breath and steadied herself. Get it together, she thought. He's just a customer like anyone else. Treat him the same. She carefully placed the cappuccino and a generous slice of pecan pie on a tray and carried it over to his table. Here you go, she said, setting the items down in front of him. Snoop looked up and gave her a faint smile. Appreciate it, sis, he said. You're welcome, Lauren replied, keeping her tone professional but friendly. Let me know if you need anything else. He nodded, then turned his attention to the window, his expression calm and introspective. As Lauren walked back to the counter, she felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement. She wasn't one to get starstruck, but there was something surreal about serving coffee and pie to one of the most iconic figures in music. Little did she know, this small interaction was about to turn her entire day and her entire week on its head. Lauren kept herself busy behind the counter, wiping down the stainless steel surface and rearranging the sugar containers for the third time. Her hands moved automatically, but her mind was buzzing. Was it really him? Snoop Dogg? The thought made her stomach flip. She wasn't someone who got caught up in celebrity culture, but this was different. This was Snoop Dogg sitting in Maggie's diner, casually sipping a cappuccino like it was just another day. She tried not to look at him, but her eyes betrayed her, sneaking glances across the room. He sat quietly in the corner booth, his posture relaxed but not slouched. He stirred his cappuccino with slow, deliberate movements, then took a sip. Unlike most customers, who buried their faces in their phones or laptops, Snoop seemed content to simply sit and observe the world outside the window. Occasionally, his gaze would shift around the room, taking in the decor, the patrons, and the sunlight streaming through the window. There was something grounding about the way he carried himself, calm, present, and completely unbothered by the whispers and stares coming from a couple sitting 2 booths away. "Do you think it's him?" one of them whispered, not as quietly as they probably thought. Lauren's coworker Jenna wandered over to her, a sly grin on her face. "You're serving him, huh?" she said under her breath. "Serving who?" Lauren asked, feigning ignorance as she scrubbed at a non-existent stain on the counter. Jenna raised an eyebrow. "Oh, come on, don't play dumb. You know who that is." Lauren sighed, lowering her voice. "Okay, fine. I think it's him, but I don't know for sure." "Well, he definitely has that vibe," Jenna said, glancing over her shoulder at the corner booth. "And those guys with him? Total security team. You don't get a setup like that unless you're someone important." "Yeah, well, it doesn't matter who he is," Lauren said, trying to sound nonchalant. "He's just a customer, and I'm just doing my job." Jenna smirked. Sure. But if it really is Snoop Dogg, this might be the most exciting thing that's ever happened here." Lauren rolled her eyes but couldn't help the small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. Jenna wasn't wrong. Maggie's diner wasn't exactly a hot spot for A-listers. The most exciting customer they'd had recently was a local politician who left behind a lousy tip. As the minutes ticked by, the cafe grew quieter. The couple in the booth eventually left, and the only sounds were the faint hum of the jukebox and the occasional clink of plates from the kitchen. Lauren busied herself wiping tables and refilling ketchup bottles, but she kept catching herself glancing at the corner booth. Snoop was still there, now halfway through his cappuccino and pecan pie. He seemed lost in thought, his gaze fixed on the street outside. Lauren wondered what he was thinking about. Did people like him even have quiet moments like this? Or was he just as weighed down by life as everyone else, despite his fame and fortune? Lauren was in the middle of stacking plates when she heard his voice behind her. "Yo, sis, could I get some water?" She turned quickly, startled to find him standing at the counter. Up close, there was no mistaking it. This was definitely Snoop Dogg. His voice, his demeanor, even the way he leaned casually against the counter. It was him. "Of course," she said, grabbing a glass from the shelf. She filled it with ice water and placed it in front of him. "Here you go." "Thanks," he said, taking a sip. Then he looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "You've been holding it down today, I can tell." Lauren blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, thanks. Just doing my job." Nah, he said, shaking his head. It's more than that. You've got that energy. You're keeping this place moving, even when it's slow. That's what makes the difference. She didn't know how to respond to that. Compliments weren't something she was used to, especially not from someone like him. Thank you, she said quietly, feeling her cheeks flush. That means a lot. He nodded, his gaze steady but kind. You're welcome. With that, he returned to his booth, leaving Lauren standing at the counter, her heart racing. What just happened? She replayed his words in her head, trying to make sense of them. There was something about the way he spoke, calm, genuine, like he saw something in her that she didn't even see in herself. She shook herself out of her thoughts and returned to her tasks, determined not to let her nerves get the best of her. But the moment stayed with her, lingering like the scent of freshly brewed coffee in the air. As the afternoon stretched on, Lauren noticed Snoop pull a pen from his pocket and lean over the receipt. He scribbled something quickly, folded the paper neatly, and tucked it under his empty cappuccino cup. Then he stood, slipping on his sunglasses and grabbing his phone. "Thanks for everything, sis," he said, nodding at her as he passed by. "You're welcome," Lauren managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Have a great day." He flashed her a small smile before heading out the door, his security team close behind. The bell jingled as the door closed behind them, leaving the diner eerily quiet. Lauren exhaled slowly, her chest tight with a strange mix of emotions. She walked over to the booth to clear the table, her hands trembling slightly. She reached for the receipt, the folded paper feeling heavier than it should. When she opened it, her breath caught. The tip was enormous. 5 crisp digits, and above it, in neat handwriting, was a note. "I see your grind. Keep pushing, sis. The world needs people like you. Brighter days are coming." Lauren stared at the note, her vision blurring as tears welled up in her eyes. She sank into the booth, her legs unable to hold her up. The weight of the moment hit her like a tidal wave. She wasn't invisible. Someone had seen her. Really seen her. And that someone was Snoop Dogg. Lauren sat in the booth, staring at the note as her hands trembled. The weight of the words written in bold, confident handwriting hit her harder than the amount of the tip. She reread it slowly, letting the meaning sink in. "I see your grind. Keep pushing, sis. The world needs people like you. Brighter days are coming." The generosity of the 5-figure tip was overwhelming. Sure, but it was the words that stayed with her. Those simple sentences carried more meaning than anyone could know. It was as though, for the first time in months, someone had looked past her smile, her rehearsed politeness, and seen the struggles she carried every day. Someone had noticed her, really noticed her. Lauren's chest tightened, and tears streamed down her face. She quickly wiped them away, looking around to see if anyone was watching. The diner was nearly empty now, with Jenna tending to the last table of the day. Lauren stuffed the note into her apron pocket, her hands still trembling. Jenna, always quick to notice when something was up, walked over. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head curiously. Lauren swallowed hard and nodded, but her voice betrayed her. "Yeah, it's nothing." Jenna squinted at her, not buying it. "It doesn't look like nothing. What happened?" Lauren hesitated, unsure whether she wanted to share. But when Jenna gave her that expectant look, the one that said, "I'm not leaving until you spill," she sighed and pulled the receipt out of her pocket. Jenna's eyes widened as she read the note and saw the tip amount. She let out a low whistle. "Are you kidding me? Is this for real?" Lauren nodded, her throat too tight to speak. "That's—" Jenna looked up at her, her voice dropping to a whisper. "That's Snoop Dogg, isn't it?" Lauren nodded again, barely able to process it herself. "Oh my God, Lauren," Jenna said, clutching the receipt like it was a golden ticket. This is insane. What did you do to make him leave you something like this?" "I don't know," Lauren said, shaking her head. "I just brought him a cappuccino and pie. That's it." Jenna stared at her, then at the receipt, and then back at her. "Well, whatever you did, he noticed. And holy crap, this tip?" She shook her head in disbelief. "Lauren, do you even realize what this could do for you?" Lauren knew exactly what it could do. It could pay her overdue rent, fix her car, and cover her brother Marcus's next round of prescriptions. It could give her a moment to breathe, to feel like the weight of the world wasn't crushing her. But the money wasn't what made her chest tighten and her tears fall. It was the note, the words that told her she mattered. "I don't even know why he wrote it," Lauren said softly, almost to herself. "I didn't do anything special." Jenna looked at her, her expression softening. "Lauren, are you kidding? You're here every single day, working your butt off. You're kind to everyone, even the jerks who don't deserve it. Maybe he saw that." Lauren bit her lip, her emotions threatening to overwhelm her again. She wasn't used to this. Being seen, being acknowledged. She had spent so much of her life feeling invisible, like her struggles were her own burden to carry, unnoticed by the world around her. But now, with just a few sentences and a generous gesture, Snoop Dogg had reminded her that her efforts weren't in vain. By the time Lauren's shift ended, the diner had emptied out, and the evening air outside was crisp and quiet. She walked home with the note folded carefully in her pocket, her heart still racing from the surreal encounter. She kept replaying his words in her head the way he had said, "Keep pushing, sis. The world needs people like you." It felt like a lifeline, a reminder to hold on when things felt impossible. The next morning, Lauren's phone buzzed incessantly on her nightstand, pulling her out of a restless sleep. She groaned, reaching for it with one hand while rubbing her eyes with the other. The screen was flooded with notifications, texts, missed calls, and social media alerts. Her heart sank. What now? One message stood out. "Lauren, is this real?" It included a link to an article. She clicked it, and her stomach flipped as the headline came into view. "Snoop Dogg leaves Waitress a life-changing tip and inspiring note." Lauren's breath caught. How did they even find out? The article included a photo of the note, her note, and the tip amount written at the bottom. It must have been one of the other customers in the diner. Someone had snapped a picture and posted it online. And now, her story wasn't just hers anymore. It was out there for the entire world to see. The article painted her as a struggling waitress whose hard work had caught the attention of a music icon. It quoted the note word for word and described Snoop's reputation for giving back to his community. By the time she finished reading, her hands were shaking. She opened her social media apps, only to find that her accounts were flooded with messages. Strangers were tagging her in posts, praising Snoop for his kindness and wishing her well. Some people speculated about her life, assuming things about her struggles that weren't entirely accurate. Others shared their own stories of kindness and generosity, inspired by the note. Lauren didn't know how to feel. She was grateful, of course, but she also felt exposed. This was her life, her struggles, and now it was being discussed by people who didn't even know her. She put her phone down and buried her face in her hands. This was too much, too fast. When Lauren arrived at the diner for her shift, the atmosphere was different. Her co-workers greeted her with wide smiles, and customers glanced her way, whispering to each other. Jenna practically bounced over to her as she tied on her apron. "Lauren, have you seen it? It's everywhere. You're famous," Jenna said, grinning. Lauren groaned. "Don't remind me." "Are you kidding? This is amazing," Jenna said. "People are saying such nice things about you, and about him." Lauren sighed, tying her apron tighter. I don't know if I'm ready for this." "Well, ready or not, the world's watching," Jenna said, giving her a nudge. "You're the talk of the town." Lauren didn't feel like the talk of the town. She felt like a waitress just trying to get through her shift. But deep down, she couldn't deny that Snoop's note had sparked something in her, a glimmer of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. The day at Maggie's diner felt unlike any other. From the moment Lauren stepped behind the counter, she felt the weight of everyone's eyes on her. Customers whispered as she walked by, a mix of curiosity and admiration in their glances. Some of the regulars offered her warm smiles and small gestures of kindness. One even left an extra tip and a scribbled note that read, "Keep shining." Lauren had always been used to going unnoticed. She was the waitress who remembered how people liked their coffee or who went out of her way to make customers feel welcome, but she rarely received more than a polite nod in return. Today, though, It was different. People weren't just seeing her, they were celebrating her. Jenna, of course, couldn't help but bask in the excitement. "Lauren," she whispered dramatically as they cleared tables during a lull. "You know this place is going to blow up now, right? People are going to come here just to see the table where Snoop sat." Lauren groaned. "Don't even say that. I'm barely holding it together as it is." Jenna laughed. "Oh, come on. It's not every day a celebrity walks in, leaves you a note, and changes your life. You're like a local legend now." But Lauren didn't feel like a legend. She still felt like the same person she was before, someone struggling to stay afloat, juggling bills and responsibilities, doing her best to get through each day. The idea of being thrust into the spotlight made her stomach churn. By lunchtime, things reached a boiling point. Lauren spotted them the moment she looked out the window. A news crew, complete with cameras, microphones, and a reporter holding a sleek tablet. They parked their van right outside the diner, their presence impossible to ignore. Lauren froze, her heart pounding as she ducked behind the counter. "Jenna?" she hissed, gesturing toward the window. "What is that?" Jenna peered out and let out a low whistle. "Oh, wow, it's happening." "What's happening?" Lauren whispered, feeling a growing sense of dread. "You're officially famous," Jenna replied with a grin. "They're here for you." Lauren wanted to disappear. She wasn't built for this kind of attention. She wasn't a celebrity or someone who thrived in the spotlight. She was just a waitress, a regular person trying to get by. The manager, Cynthia, approached, her expression a mix of amusement and concern. "Lauren, they want to talk to you," she said, nodding toward the reporters. "Apparently, the story's gone national." Lauren shook her head, panic rising in her chest. "I can't do that. I don't even know what to say." Cynthia placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Just be honest. You don't have to say anything you're not comfortable with, but this is your moment, Lauren. People want to hear your story." Lauren hesitated. Part of her wanted to bolt out of the back door and avoid the cameras altogether, but another part of her, the part that remembered Snoop's note and the impact it had on her, knew that this wasn't just about her anymore. His gesture had sparked something bigger, and maybe, just maybe, sharing her story could keep that ripple going. Lauren stepped outside, her hands clasped tightly in front of her to keep them from shaking. The reporter, a polished woman in her mid-30s, greeted her warmly. "Lauren Mitchell?" she asked, extending a hand. "I'm Dana Brooks with the Channel 7 News. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us." Lauren nodded nervously. Sure, no problem." Dana gestured toward the camera. "We'll keep this short, I promise. We just want to hear about your experience, how it felt when you saw the note, and what it means to you." Lauren took a deep breath as the camera began rolling. The bright light felt blinding, and her heart hammered in her chest, but she forced herself to focus. "It caught me off guard," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't even realize it was him at first. He was just so kind and low-key. When I saw the note and the tip, I couldn't believe it. It wasn't just the money. It was what he wrote. It felt like someone finally saw me, you know." Dana nodded, her expression encouraging. "The note said, 'I see your grind. Keep pushing, sis. The world needs people like you. Brighter days are coming.' How did that make you feel?" Lauren swallowed hard. It reminded me to hope again. I've been struggling for a while, working extra shifts just to make ends meet, and sometimes it feels like no one notices. But he did. Those words meant more to me than I can even explain." The reporter smiled, clearly moved. "What would you say to Snoop Dogg if he were watching this right now?" Lauren hesitated for a moment, then said, "I'd say thank you, not just for the tip, but for reminding me that kindness still exists. You didn't have to do what you did, but you did it anyway, and it made all the difference." By the time Lauren finished the interview and went back inside, the diner was abuzz with energy. Customers approached her table to offer kind words, some leaving extra tips or notes of their own. One elderly man handed her a folded dollar bill with a smile. "It's not much, but I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your story," he said. "The world could use more kindness." Lauren felt overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. She had always considered herself invisible, just another waitress blending into the background, but now people were seeing her in a way she never imagined. When she checked her phone during a quick break, she saw that Snoop Dogg himself had posted about her on Instagram. He had shared a photo of the diner with the caption, "Sometimes you just vibe with a spot and the people in it. Shout out to Lauren at Maggie's Diner. Keep grinding, sis. You're the real MVP." The post had already garnered hundreds of thousands of likes and comments. Lauren stared at it in disbelief, her heart swelling with gratitude and disbelief. This wasn't just a moment anymore, it was a movement. As the day wound down and the diner emptied out, Lauren found herself sitting in the same booth where Snoop had left his note. She unfolded the receipt and read it again, the words now etched into her memory. "The world needs people like you. Brighter days are coming." She smiled softly, tucking the note back into her pocket. For the first time in a long time, she believed those words. Brighter days really were coming. Take a moment today to show kindness. It could change someone's life in ways you can't imagine. If this story inspired you, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and subscribe for more uplifting content. Let's spread kindness together.